Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for an overview of the Dow Jones News Fund Summer Internship Program. Can I get a thumbs up if you guys can see my screen? I just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. I'm the manager of digital media and programs, and I work with Shirley Carswell, our executive director, in managing the Dow Jones News Fund. Hold on. I'm trying to. The controls are blocking my ability to change the screen. See how all right, hold on one second. Why can't oh, here we go. Okay. So the Dow Jones News Fund offers paid internship program. Just, sorry. Always have technical difficulties. Since 1960, we've offered the Dow Jones News Fund Summer Internship Program. This has played a pivotal role in launching journalism careers for thousands of journalists. If you go to any major newsroom, you are likely to run into a DJNF alum. This program is eligible for sophomores, juniors, seniors, and graduate students if you are currently enrolled this fall. If you are graduating in December, you are also eligible. Just to give you a sense of the scale of our program, this past summer we had 81 interns in more than 62 newsrooms across the country. So, what's unique about our program from other programs is that if you are selected and assigned an internship with a newsroom, you get to go to a pre-internship training program. So, this is 7 to 10 days where you're living on a college campus or in a city somewhere in America at a university between May 19th and June 9th. They're sort of staggered. We have 7 different programs that are staggered throughout that time period. And during that, you're learning and living with 10 to 15 of your peers from across the country. We cover your travel, housing, and meals during the training week. And it's a really special time. Some people are like, oh, I already know everything. I don't need the training. But the key secret sauce of this is the forming the bonds with the other journalists, because these are people who are going to be entering the job market at the same time as you, having the same challenges. And it's really special to have these tight bonds with other people who are going to be working in newsrooms. You guys can like sort of coordinate and talk about like what your experiences are in other newsrooms. So I just want to say that's a really key component of our program is forming those bonds with other journalists during that week. And then you do learn a lot. We really drill in a lot. And then you leave the training ready to work. And I'm just going to go over the trainings, but before I do this, I just want to make sure there's no one waiting in the waiting room because I can't manage both at the same time. Um, okay, so hopefully no one's in the waiting room because I can't see if there is. So the audience engagement training. So this was at Temple University last summer. This program is really about how to optimize journalistic work, a lot of articles or video for the different social media platforms. So you're learning SEO, copywriting, social copy. You're learning design skills, working with Canva, producing maybe vertical video on your handheld device, maybe working with DSLR cameras to create images for Instagram. You're learning how to create high quality content to drive social engagement. What we typically look for from applicants are students who have previous social media experience. And when I say previous experience, that could be with a student newsroom, maybe a club on campus, maybe you're the social media chair for some group on campus, a sorority or fraternity, maybe a church that you go to. You demonstrate that you have some experience working not only on not on a personal social media account, but on a professional account. We have a lot of internships in this program where you're working on newsletters. So we might look for previous newsletter work or SEO experience. This training was at Temple last year. Okay. Digital media. This program is, I would say, about like content creation. There's a lot of overlap with the audience engagement program as well. They both go into trying to push out on social media channels and SEO. But during the training week, it's much more hands-on learning different tools. So video, podcasting, photography. We sort of let people lean into what are the skills that they really want to hone during the training week for where they're going during the internship. So it's sort of like a choose your own adventure while you're at the training program. And what I say for this internship, we usually look for people who just have, for lack of a better term, digital savvy. So maybe you work for your college TV station, so you have really strong video and video editing skills. Other candidates might be, again, doing social media, so you have really strong social. Maybe you do a podcast. There's not one check, one list we're looking for. Each internship is different. And so we look for a variety of different skills, but we sort of look for people who just work in the digital space. They understand like all the lingo. You understand the differences between JPEGs and MP3s and MP4s, and you understand to post something to SoundCloud, what SoundCloud is, or maybe you know what Reels is versus other tools. So you just sort of speak in digital speak and understand how to work in those spaces. The multi-platform editing program, this is for really copy editing. So this is with a lot of legacy newspapers take our still participate in our copy editing program. It's at UT Austin, which is a fun city to be in for a week. And here you're really learning about the challenge of editing and designing and publishing high quality content for social and digital and print products. I mean, some of these internships, they are still designing the front page of a paper newspaper. Some interns are just working in a digital space. Maybe they're doing the push notifications to mobile devices. Others, you're just really in the weeds, editing a story and working with reporters. So during this week, we're really honing your AP style skills, your editing skills, your design and layout, and doing a lot of practice writing headlines. That's like the key thing is like headlines, headlines, headlines. So learning what the difference is between like print and social and digital headlines. How do you write an SEO headline and all of that? What we typically look for are people who have previous copy editing experience. So maybe you're the copy chief at your student newspaper, you are on the copy desk, maybe you're a writing coach at a writing center on campus. We want people who have a really strong command of grammar and English language and AP style. So yeah, but definitely looking for previous copy editing experience. Business reporting program. This is our largest program, so I always sort of really promote it because it's probably the best opportunity to get accepted into our program. We have three different cohorts in our business reporting. So pictured here, we have an ACBJ cohort where it's interns exclusively working for American City of Business Journals, which have 44 markets across the country, which I'll give you a little map of that later on. Bottom right is our standalone regular business reporting program in New York City, these are all the interns who'll be working at a publication based in New York City. And that's much more focused on covering Wall Street, markets, finance, global economic trends. Our program director is much more focused on honing and crafting your business like writing skills, like how to write like a markets report. How do really going over that and talking about the different major big global things when you talk about the economy and finance and Wall Street. And then on the left is a picture of our program at American University in DC. Is for everyone who's not going to ACBJ and not going to New York. So these are interns working in newspapers or business to business publications, trade magazines that are all across the country. So we had interns going to Vermont, Detroit, San Antonio, Albuquerque, New Mexico, San Francisco, California. And here it's much more about finding the news stories in these different communities. You're not covering Wall Street, you're not covering finance in the markets, but you might be covering what is the major industry in that community. If you're going to Detroit, you're looking at the car industry. Our interns in the Southwest were looking at different data processing centers, microconductor chips. Maybe it's covering real estate. What is real estate? Looking at who are the major industries, employers in a community, what are the major businesses, how is the economy impacted by government decisions? Are the decisions in DC impacting the economy in that local community? So, really great opportunities there. For this program, you do not need to have a business background. but we look for really strong reporters, people who have really strong writing skills. You're not scared by the news gathering process. You can pick up the phone and call someone. You know how to hound someone for a quote. I would say you must have for your clips in this application, like 3 to 5 stories that you've written and published. I would not submit classroom work. Because for our business reporting program, you are on day one a reporter and filing stories. You do not have 2 weeks to turn in a school paper. So we really want to find people who have reporting experience that have been published, gone through an editor. So that is really important that you have previous reporting experience. It could be arts and entertainment reporting. It could be sports reporting. It could be all different types, but we need to know that you're comfortable working on a deadline and working quickly to meet your deadline and you write accurately and you follow all the principles of journalism. So that is our business reporting program. Um, Data journalism. This program is at University of Maryland. Really great program where we're talking about computer-assisted reporting, data visualization, how to obtain and analyze data. Our internships within data are very broad. Some of them are very focused. Some of them you might not have a single news clip the whole summer. You're just working on one big investigative project all summer. You're filing records requests. You're getting large data sets. You're cleaning data files. You're using different tools like Python and R to clean and scrub data. Other internships, you're a reporter using data and just writing stories using data. Some internships are much more heavy on data visualization. So it all varies what the internships look like, and they sort of cover a little bit of everything during the data training. So in terms of skills, we're looking for people who might have taken investigative reporting classes. Maybe you've worked on a school project. I would say in this case where I said for business reporting, no school projects, I think we would be okay with a school project in data journalism. Maybe you have a GitHub portfolio where you've done some data work and you want to showcase that. If you have some data visualization charts that you've done, think of all those type of things that can showcase your skills when it comes to data. So that is that. I'm going to take another pause to see if we have anyone in the waiting room. Don't. Okay. I don't think so. Okay. Um, so the internship. So after you go to that training week, you then go to your internship. Sorry. The internships are generally 10 to 12 weeks long. We do have a couple 6-month fellowships if you've graduated. So that's something where I'd be like, I just need to make sure you're not going to grad school this fall. The interns are placed in a wide variety of publications. We have newspapers, digital first publications, business to business trade publications, radio and TV stations, nonprofit news organizations, weekly salaries of $525 a week or more. Most of our internships are in person or hybrid. We do have a very small select few who are 100% remote. We only have the remote if the internship, if the newsroom has no physical space, then we will allow you to work remotely. But we really strongly advise against it. Interns generally hate remote internships, but sometimes it works. I mean, some people just can't move for the summer, and so maybe offering a remote opportunity will be beneficial. We do cover your travel cost to relocate to a new city. We do not cover your housing or transportation during the internship. So, if you are from California and we send you to Texas, we will fly you to Texas. You are responsible for finding your housing and figuring out how you're going to get around in Texas. But at the end of the summer, we will get you home. And I work with you on that. So those are the internships. Okay. The benefits. So, in addition to having the week of training and the internship itself for 10 to 12 weeks, we offer a $1,500 scholarship that can go towards college tuition. We have a mentorship program, which is really great. Some of our interns say, like, this was the best thing of the whole experience was getting my mentor. We put out a call to our alumni to serve as a mentor. We have a form you fill out. You can tell us what you're looking for a mentor. Some newsrooms also provide mentors during your internship. So, we can always check to see, make sure you don't get two, or maybe you want two mentors. It's really up to you. But the mentorship program is really great. They're people who you can bounce questions off of, like, how do I approach them about getting a job at the end of the summer? Or, what do I wear on the first day? What's the dress code? So it could be how to get more stories or get more work, things like that. We also offer memberships to professional organizations. We did a little differently this year where we let the intern choose the journalism organization up to a certain limit for student membership. So, groups like NABJ, AAJA, ONA, SPJ, all the different letters, NLGJA. And then so you could get professional membership to some of these organizations. And then digital access to Wall Street Journal for a year. And then we have something called the Intern Assistance Fund. It's not huge, but we do fundraise from our alumni and students who are challenged because, 525 a week doesn't go far in some markets. But if you need assistance, either for groceries, transportation, rent, we might be able to provide a little bit of assistance on an as-needed basis. So let's dive in and talk a little bit more about what, the internships themselves and the newsrooms that you might be worked at or placed at. So I'll leave this here. You guys can all zoom in and look at. I know we're very heavy on the East Coast. Apologies to our West Coasters. We're trying to change that. And you'll see I put some of the remote internships in the East Coast column because you're expected to work on East Coast hours, even if you're remote. So if you're in California, you'd have to work on East Coast hours. So you can just sort of get an idea of where we're at. I'll also say for anything that's like Albany Business Review or any of the ACBJ publications, that changes every year. So they're not necessarily the same, but I'll show you a map of where those are located on another screen. So I'll just take another second for you guys to look at this list of where, and this is where they worked last summer in 2025. It could be completely new. Every year we sort of have a transition where some newsrooms sign up again, we get new newsrooms signing up, we get old ones who have to take a break for a year. So it varies from year to year. This is the map of where the ACBJ publications are. So you can see they're sort of all over the country. We have a lot in Florida, Texas, California, North Carolina. Really great program. The editor there who picks the interns is really looking for people who either go to school in those cities or their hometown is in that city or state. They really want to find people who, one, don't need to find new housing, that you will have access to housing in that state because, it is a burden that they're trying to avoid having you to find an apartment for the summer. They also, you'll be more familiar with the area to do the reporting. You'll be more committed, or invested in wanting possibly to stay there for future employment. So they look for people who either go to school or live in one of these communities. Now, another big mystery everyone always asks me is like the selection process. How do we pick who goes where? So we start our selection process in November. We'll start reviewing the applications and we continue. There's no end date to our selection process. And we don't send an email being like, sorry, we didn't pick you this year, because we just never know when a newsroom might sign up. We've had newsrooms sign up as late as end of April, early May. A newsroom might call us and say, hey, we just had an intern drop out. Can you find us someone? And we just jump into our applicant pool and try to find someone. But I'll walk you through sort of how we generally do our intern selection process. So a newsroom will sign up. And when they sign up, they give us a job description. They'll give us any hiring requirements. Some newsrooms have requirements that you must live in a certain city or state for payroll purposes, where they will deduct their payroll taxes. Some newsrooms specifically say we want a senior who's graduated and that we could possibly hire at the end of the internship. Some newsrooms say we just want sophomores or juniors. I have another newsroom who says I just want grad students. So we'll get very specific requests from that newsroom. They might say they need to be from the state. We want someone who's familiar with the area. Some newsrooms require a car. Like if you're going to a very rural city or state that doesn't have public transportation, you might need a car, and that really limits available eligibility for some people. We do ask on our application if you have access to a car, and so we will be using that that check mark on our application to figure out, okay, who's good for this job and has a car. So that's how we start. We get the job description, and then our program directors and myself and Shirley, we search the applicant pool for who we think would be the best match for those internships. Now, the newsroom also tells us how involved they want to be. They might say, DJNF, we trust you guys. You guys find it and just tell us who it is. Most newsrooms, though, I would say want to either review applications, they want to review resumes and the application materials, or they even want to do an interview. So I might call you up and say, Hi, this is Heather from the Dow Jones News Fund. I think you'd be a great candidate for this newsroom in Nashville, Tennessee. One, are you still available? And would you be willing to move to Nashville for the summer? And that's where we can then first have our starting conversation of, no, I really can't move to Nashville for the summer. I don't want to move there, or I don't have the means to move there. And then we could talk about maybe where your residency requirements. But if I called you, we're interested. We're looking at your application. We see potential in you. So, that's where we start. But let's say, yes, I would love to move to Nashville for the summer. That sounds awesome. I'll be like, okay, great. We might interview you further, but we might put you on the short list for that newsroom of saying you're going to be one of two or one of three candidates for this newsroom. You're going to be hearing from their editor for a follow-up interview, and we'll take it from there. And we've had students who've gone through a couple different interviews with a couple different internships before we're able to find that match. That if we've called and put you up for an internship, we see potential, and if I can find something else for you, I will. But that's generally the process. Is the newsroom signs up, we search, we find a list of two or three candidates for that spot, give it to the newsroom, and then let them make the final decision. And then this is ongoing because newsrooms are signing up all throughout the winter. So I would say in December, maybe we have like 40 internships signed up, but by April, we'll have 80. So it's sort of on a rolling basis, the newsrooms are coming in. So now let's talk about the application. This is due November 5th. It's a Google form that you can access on our website. So you apply and you fill out the application. On the application, you're going to have a couple of attachments. So you want to do these before you get started with the application because I don't think you can save it as you go. So the resume is one of the most important documents in your application. I really want you to focus on your journalistic work and your journalistic experience. We do not need to know about like retail work or if you work at a restaurant, unless like there's something journalistic you do. Maybe you manage the social media for that company. If there is something, or maybe there's skills you have. Maybe you work in an office that's not a journalism related, but you've mastered Excel and you know all these other tools, or you work in Canva. Anything that can add to like what skills you can bring to the table, and what experiences you have, any leadership qualities. That's great. Really, if you have any skills, you want those listed there. If you have any memberships to journalism organizations, if you have any leadership roles on campus, those are the type of things that we would love to see. If you work at the student newsroom, what positions have you had over the years? Maybe you started as just a beat reporter, but now you're editor in chief. What are those different things that you've done? Bullet points of the type of work that you've done. If you're a copy editor, how many stories a week are you copy editing? Are you mastered AP style? You don't know how many people are copy editors, but they don't list on their application that they know, or their resume, that they know AP style. So think about things like that. Bullet points of how you can highlight your work you've done in those different roles. We only want an unofficial transcript for the application. We don't want you spending money. Some schools charge money to get an official transcript, and we do not want you spending money to apply. We want this to be a free process for you. So unofficial transcript. If you're a grad student, I always recommend doing a undergraduate and graduate transcript. Do both. So we could see the type of coursework you've taken. We don't have a minimum GPA requirement, but we do look at some of the coursework you've taken and see if there's any red flags that we should know about. And really, we want the current transcript because we also want to confirm that you're enrolled in school, because you do have to be enrolled in school during the fall to qualify for our program. 3 to 5 work samples. For business reporting, as I said earlier, these really should be published stories, single byline that you've written. You can definitely have a couple co-byline stories, but I wouldn't have all your samples be co-bylines. We really want to see how your own work is on your own. Some people choose to do like a Word document and then you put like a little explainer of like, here's a link to a story that I did. It took me 6 months. I did all this investigative work. Here's a video I did. I did the script. I wrote the script. I edited it in this Adobe Premiere. I did this, or here's a data visualization I did. I got all the records. I filed records, whatever kind of explainer you want to give about what, like, why you're providing this work sample. Those are great. Those little explainers are great. You don't have to do that. You could just attach the work samples and let them stand their own. But if you did want to get a variety, like I know some people are going to apply for different programs, you might want to say, here are some work samples for data journalism. Here are some work samples for business reporting. And that's perfectly fine. And then the personal essay. The personal essay is really to showcase your writing skills, not AI's writing skills. So please do not use AI to write your essay. They stick out really a lot. We really wanted to try to make this a personal question so you could do some personal reflection about journalism, about yourself, and hopefully not written by AI. And you can interpret it really broadly. It's really to showcase your writing skills and storytelling skills. So when we ask you what's the most impactful thing you did as a journalist the past year, it does not have to be like, I wrote this glaring, this huge expose and got someone fired, or got a law changed at the school administration. Nothing, it doesn't have to be something major like that. It could be as simple as your leadership role on student media, a topic. It could be an error you almost, you made and you learned, you made a big error and you learned how to now prevent doing those errors. It could be in this classroom assignment. So, it's not about what you did but just how you tell that story, reflect upon it, and write about it. So on the application, that's where we ask you to select which programs you're interested in. You could choose all 5 programs, or you could select just one. We do ask a second question for you to pick your top choice, and that's typically where we try to place you. But we might look at your resume and say, like, I know you selected business reporting as your top choice, but we have this data journalism internship that we think you'd be a really great fit for. And we could give you the job description and explain why we think you're a good fit for that. But yeah, so you start off checking more than one box, and then we ask you to narrow it down to one. We ask you what other cities or states where you call home or have access to affordable housing. The number one complaint we get is about housing. We know it's hard out there to find affordable housing. So if we can help you, we will. It will not disqualify you from being called about other opportunities, but if you like go to school somewhere, let's say you go to school in New York City, but your home is in Wyoming, but you put the New York address, we might not know that you're from Wyoming, and that might help because we do have newsrooms who have very specific geographic concerns. They might say, for years, we had an internship in California where they wanted someone who was born and raised in California, who was very familiar with the state. So I was like, going through the application pool trying to find anyone who grew up in California. So whatever notes you want to put in that box, put it there. Some people use that box as their opportunity to say, I'm willing to go anywhere. Send me anywhere. I don't care. So that's where you put that in the application. We ask for 2 professional references. These should not be other students, even if it's like the editor-in-chief of your newspaper. Uh, don't use it. We want people who are going to be, who, when I call them, I'm going to say, did you meet deadlines? How did you reacting professional? Could they work on independently on their own? What kind of, we're going to be asking about your work character and work professionalism. And so people who could speak to that. We do have a question about what industries or topics you're interested in covering as a journalist. It's not required. You can leave it blank, but if you are passionate about a certain area, it's really great for us to know. We do get some pretty niche publications. In the past, we had a publication that covered the marijuana industry, and some people were like, "Oh no!" But really, we were looking for public policy reporters who maybe were interested in agriculture or state politics. Would be covering like marijuana. We have in the past had the Marshall Project in our program, so we look for people who are passionate about criminal justice reform. We've had other environmental focused publications or internships where we look for people who care about climate change. So it really varies. A lot of the newsrooms aren't that specific into an issue or topic, but it does help us to know if you are passionate about something. And then dates of availability. This is very, very, very important. A lot of applicants won't even know that they've disqualified themselves for consideration just by the dates of availability. I usually will still call someone and just say, "Did you mean to put this date? Because you're not eligible now." Some of our program directors, though, will not. They'll just save themselves time and say, "Oh, they put that they're not free till June 10th. I'm not calling them." So the training weeks typically fall between around May 19th to June 9th. If you are doing a study abroad program, that falls under those dates. If there's anything that conflicts with the training program that we're calling you about, then that disqualifies you because you have to go the training. It is required. But there is not, the training does not last for those 5 weeks. So maybe you put business reporting. We have three different trainings in business reporting. So you might say, I'm going to be away May 19th to the 23rd. Well, this business reporting program starts after those dates. So maybe I could slide you in there. I'll see what we can do if we could find something and move you to the other training program. Or maybe we really like you and we want to try to switch you to one of the other trainings if we think it could fit. So we can work, but understanding your availability is really important. I would say try to put the earliest date possible. If you are on a quarter system, especially I know California schools and Northwestern, if you're out there in the audience, we usually can work with schools where they'll allow you to be excused from campus for a week to attend the training, and then you'll go back to school, finish finals, and then we can push back your internship start date till after you finish the quarter at your school. So usually those schools, like I know Northwestern is usually very good about working with us and students. So after you finish the application, you are going to submit it. You will get an email receipt. So if you do not get that email receipt, it did not go through. I also want you, when you get that email receipt, to look at the bottom of the message and view entire message. Make sure all the attachments are there. I've already gotten several applicants who have emailed me saying, "Oh my goodness, I forgot to attach something. Can you please add this to my application?" So you can do that. Try, not to inundate me with lots of emails. I will try my best. When we get to around November 5th, I will be flooded with different emails and requests, but you can also, I always tell people, you can email me at like a lot of people will say like, especially for business reporting, you file in October your application. Maybe in January you get an award for a story you wrote. You can email me and be like, "Hey, I just got an award for this article. I'd like to add it to my application." And I will add it to your application. So, it's sort of a living application, as you will, as we go along, because our selection process is so long. People definitely have followed up with me in January, February, said, "Here, can you add this story to my application?" Also, for people who are stressed out, maybe you don't have a lot of clips. I know some schools are like, "I just started journalism. I don't have a lot of clips." Do what you best you can to get your clips in now before November 5th, but you could email me later on in December, January, February and say, "Here, I just got a story published that I'd like to add." Okay, so after the application, after you submit, we then will send you an email to sign up to sign up to take the test. This is a new platform, so for any of you that applied last year and took the test on HireVue, this platform is very different, and the rules for taking the test are a little bit different than what we were used to with HireVue. Um, so it's the same I mean, the test content itself is pretty similar, the type of questions, but the way sign up works is different than how HireVue worked. So with HireVue, I think you just got a link and you clicked it and you got to take the test. Sign up, you get an email to reset your password. So you're going to get this invite to create your account and reset your password. You have to do that within 7 days. That link will expire in 7 days. You don't have to take the test right away, but you do have to create your account. The test itself, we've changed it to add 2 video response questions. We really like the videos. When people say what's what are the most important parts of your application, I would say your video responses to these questions. Consider them like interview questions that we're asking you. It's the first thing we look at when we look at someone's application are the video responses. And the video responses are not graded. But they are interview questions. And then so for the actual test that is graded, current events, public figures, and when I say current events, we pull from sports, pop culture, science, Supreme Court decisions, politics, government, natural disasters, all of that. So current events, grammar, AP style, and then key concepts in digital media, business, data, and math. I'll say this test this year is shorter than last year's. If you took last year's, I think it was 67 questions. This year it's 57. It's averaging people about 15 to 25 minutes to take. So the best ways to prepare for the test. One, I'm having a test prep session tomorrow where we'll actually go through and look at last year's test. So I would recommend signing up for that session if you want to see how the test looks in the sign up platform. So I took the test out of high review and I put it into sign up so we could actually see how it works in that platform. So join us tomorrow or watch the recording when I post it on the website. But if you're just watching today, you want to Google the top stories from January through August. We finalized the test at the end of August, so nothing that's happened in the last month will be on the test. Hopefully, no one listed in there gets fired from their government position. We usually try to rate the questions so they're evergreen no matter what news event happens. But download previous tests. All of them are available on our website. Find current events questions, and then also review AP style and grammar. You could go back 10 years of AP style and grammar questions. That doesn't change over. I mean, well, AP style might change slightly over, but grammar, there's always the same types of questions we ask: who, whom, word usage, subject verb agreement, things like that. And AP style, numbers, 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 titles, city and states. There's sort of key things that we ask about in all different ways every year. International students already in the US and with proper visas are eligible. You must have OPT or CPT to be able to get an internship. We do not sponsor visas. So the deadline, the timeline of what to expect. So our application deadline is November 5th. On November 6th, everyone who waited that last day to apply, I will send out the email to everyone to sign up. Everyone must finish the test by November 9th at 11:55 p.m. Eastern Time. That will be the deadline. So if you applied now, as I said, you have to sign up for sign up. You don't actually have to take the test. But you'll have the link in there. And then so you take the test before November 9th. We will start in mid to late November. We'll start reviewing applications. And then we start selection. And it's as I said before, we might call you to say you're a finalist for something. We want you to interview with this newsroom for this internship. Our pre-internship trainings will be between May 9th and June 7th. And then your internships usually begin June 2026. So that concludes the presentation for today. I am now going to check and see if there's any questions. There's no questions in the chat, but I will let you guys first. This is questions that we're okay asking on the recording. Okay. No. All right. We're gonna hold on. Give me a minute to stop the recording. Let's stop. If I can figure this out. Sorry, I'm managing this by myself and not knowing where all my keys are.